What's up, my friends, and welcome to today's episode of Forte Catholic. I'm so glad that you are here. We have a great episode today. I co-host with Liv. I share some big news in my life that I'm excited to share with you guys. We also talk about what are the rules when you're in line for confession? What can you do? What can't you do? And I tell the story that, like, I swear to you it's all true, and it sounds like it's out of a corny Christian or Catholic movie. It was one of the craziest confession experiences of my life, and it was a blast. Also, our guest this week is Everett Fritz. We talk about just making one disciple, just one. See if you can just do just one. And then maybe because of Pringles, bet you can't do just one. I hope that you enjoy today's show. If you do, please subscribe wherever you are watching or listening to this. Enjoy it, my friends. What's up? Welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll. That is Liv Harrison. She's so still. I still have so much PTSD from the last time we recorded together and the internet froze every 4 minutes. So every time you're like not constantly moving, I'm like, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Hey, Liv.
Hey, Tay.
That's how bad things are in my life. PTSD from Zoom meetings. That's the bad stuff going on with me.
Jeez. Could that be more like privileged or what?
No, I think it's real trauma. I really do. I think it's real trauma, and I'm struggling with it. I can't believe you're laughing at my trauma. I can't believe it.
You're such a snowflake. It's because you're a millennial.
Unique and unrepeatable.
Yeah, that's it. Are you a millennial? What are you? What are you?
Perfectly crafted by God.
Perfectly
that's
crafted.
my answer to both of your questions, the previous and the last one.
You're hilarious. Yeah, your trauma. Well, we're all here for you, Taylor. We're here for your trauma.
Thank
you. You actually, you have no reason to have any trauma. You've got a lot of amazing things going on. So I'm not gonna fall for this.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm sure you learned right from your therapist. If things look good on the outside, then everybody must be doing great on behind the scenes.
Yes, actually, I learned that from Instagram. That's what I learned that from.
Yeah.
Not my therapist.
Yeah, Mr. Graham is incorrect, I believe, on this one. But no, it is things have been pretty good for me. I'm not going to lie. Some of the things I've gotten to talk about in this show. If you listen to the show, I assume you follow on social media, so you probably saw this, or you like read you clicked on the thing, so you kind of know what I'm about to say, right? But I got to send an email yesterday, like to our newsletter that I never talk about, fortecatholic.com, and it'll pop up. You can sign up for the email newsletter, or whatever. I send it out every 3 months because I'm busy. Like it's very big updates. But essentially, over the last month, there's been a couple of things that I've talked about on the show quite a bit. Over the last month, we started men's retreats. We had our first one. We talked about that a few weeks ago. That's why Father Anthony was in Texas. We're having another one here in a couple of weeks. That's new. These are happening. We mentioned a few weeks before that we were mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, like the show and me. Like that was really cool. And then the other update, I got to send all of these out in one email. The big actual new news, we're recording this on Saturday. It releases in a few days. But on Friday, something that I signed an NDA for. You know what an NDA is?
That is so big time. That's a non-disclosure, right?
Non-disclosure agreement, right? You've actually had me sign one too. You just you give away all your own secrets, so it doesn't matter.
I know, the worst.
Sign this NDA, and you're like, I'm doing another new podcast, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're talking about it now. I signed the NDA 3 hours ago. You can't say anything. Okay.
I'm the worst.
Yeah.
I just want to be famous on the outside.
Yeah, for real.
So I just make up things. So you signed a real NDA.
I did, and it was this process, and I'll explain what happened. But it's this long process that I've known about this for quite some time, that it was probably going to happen, and then I got about 3 weeks ago, I pretty much knew it was going to happen, and then on Friday, I knew it was going to happen, like 100%, and so I was able to tell people about it. But I got chosen by Ascension Press as one of the 4 audio editors for Catechism in a Year by Father Mike Schmitz, the follow-up to Bible in a Year, which was the #1 podcast in America last year.
I would say the world. Wasn't it the #1 in the world?
I don't know if they're. I mean, that's kind of like saying like the NFL has the best football team in the world. It's like we're the only ones that have them. Like there are podcasts over the rest of the world, but like we're the ones
biggest
that create them.
podcast in Bangladesh.
Yeah, it's like, you say like, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers were the 16th best team in the NFL last year. They were also the 16th best in the world.
That's hilarious. So, do we know who the other 3 editors are? Because I think we should egg their house. I mean, congratulate them.
I know who. I am aware of one of them. I'm assuming this person got picked. I'm not going to say who it is, just in case they didn't.
Okay.
But so I suggested that they talked to 2 other people, and one of them they had already talked to, and it seemed like it was going well. So, Taylor,
this is a big deal. Like this is a big deal. Like you need to make this into a huge deal because it is. Also, you should just never send another newsletter out again because there's no way.
Here's the podcast.
You can top this.
It's my podcast.
I'll be speaking in Iowa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You have peaked. So congratulations.
Yeah. so many people have told me that since then. Like I should just quit now. So many people are like, this is the height of your career. You've peaked. This is the best it's ever going to be. And I'm like, I mean,
no, that's your line.
It's awesome.
That's your line.
No, like
you would
it's not
say
just
that.
you. It's not just you. Everybody,
no, I'm saying you would say that.
That means
honestly,
that I'm at the peak. I'm going to go down from here.
No, honestly, to be honest, do you want to know what my actual first response was after I sent you every exclamation point that iPhone would let me send you? Was I feel like, honest to goodness, this is a door flying wide open. Like I really do. I don't feel like and we're done. I feel like it's like, and hey, don't forget the rest of us, and it could go either way. It could, but I really do. I really think, and it makes sense, Taylor, you've been doing this a really long time. And I know this, and I'll say this for you because I definitely know you know this. You are the best, and I'm just going to say this word, sound engineer that I've ever met.
That was 2 words.
So there you go.
Thank you.
It was hyphenated.
Sound engineer. Sound engineer.
Well, because I don't know what the real term is, so I just decided it was sound engineer.
Audio engineers is pretty close.
Okay.
So,
well, there you go. You are. You're the best I've ever worked with.
The best I ever had.
The best.
I mean, you've worked with 1.5, so thank you.
That's not true. You'd be shocked who I have worked with. I know somebody who's working right now for Julian Fellows on The Gilded Age. So there you go.
I only know who Brian Fellows is from SNL. That's a whole other thing. Shout out to Tracy
Downton
Morgan.
Abbey.
Hey, Tracy.
The Downton Abbey people.
Okay, here's
saying you're better than that guy.
What's so funny is one of my professional idols is Lino Rulli. I love the guy, the Catholic Guy show. A lot of the Catholic comedy show. He was the first person I saw do it, and I was like, there needs to be more of that. And he's one of my big inspirations, right?
Yeah.
And before he started in Catholic radio, he says it like this, where he was like, I was actually successful before he started in Catholic radio. He has 3 Emmys for his work in TV production. And I'm never going to win an Emmy, right? But this, for me, it kind of feels like this is, because he had all these big projects that won. And it's like, I'm not going to win an Emmy, but if Catechism in a Year follows up and could be, the Catechism isn't as big of a deal as the Bible is just globally, right? But it's a big deal. So even if this hits, the fact that I would have edited something that was one of, if not the biggest podcast in the world at some point, that's it. That's my Emmy.
Done.
Right?
That's on your resume.
Right.
Forever. He was, listen, Father Mike was in Times Square. He was on a billboard in Times Square.
I've been in Times Square. But the billboard. That was the difference.
In lights.
Yeah. He was up on the billboard. Deal. I was next to a drunk Elmo.
Now it's just pot everywhere in Times Square. It's unbelievable. Not in a good way. This is huge. It's massive. And no, I think that's a very good point. And especially, Lino has been your hero from the moment I met you, way back in the day. And this is exactly this kind of stuff, these huge projects that someone like a Lino Rulli would have that would catapult to the next place, or whatever. And I think that here's what's so cool. And you and I have talked about this. What an age we live in. You live in a tiny town in Texas. In your house, you have a little studio.
I do live
You're
in
not
my
in
house.
LA.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, you're not in LA. You're not in New York. You're not, some grad from Berkeley. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how cool is this that you took the gifts that God gave you and you're doing it from where you're at and you're able to do work on the largest podcast in the world? That's massive. That is huge. And this is not where you're peaking. This is the beginning. So
here's the only thing I'm worried about.
Okay, what?
Because the Catechism isn't as popular globally as the Bible, I'm a little worried that if this one doesn't hit number one, I'll be to blame.
I think Jesus is to be to blame, or Pope Francis, not you.
Oh, okay.
You didn't write the Catechism?
I'm fine with blaming Jesus if we don't want to blame me. That's fine.
This is not your fault. Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, that's good to have, like, boundaries. I don't have boundaries. You know this. So that's good that you have them. You have the right expectations. Are you going to get a bus and, tour with J-Lo after this? Probably not. But is it going to be pretty rad to put on your resume? And is it going to put you on a list of people that you were not on before? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For
really
sure.
It's cool. One of the cool things, you mentioned resume, like I could put it on my resume.
Yeah.
The cool thing is I don't have one.
That's all you put on the resume.
Well, no. Like, I didn't submit a resume for this. Like, literally, I'm going to tell the story of how this happened, right? So there's a group of Catholic podcasts. It's like there's like 25, 30 people maybe in this Facebook group, right? And it's just the Catholic podcasters that just kind of share information and ask questions. There's a bunch of those groups. This one's a good one. I'm still in this one. Somebody came in and asked if there was any good audio editors, and I didn't even see it. But I started getting tagged. Like, other people in the Catholic podcasting community were suggesting me, which was really cool, right? So then this person, before I even saw it, this person had reached out to me on like Facebook Messenger, who's like the head of audio at Ascension, which is who publishes.
When was this? Can you say when or no?
Months. This was like 6-7 months ago, where this part happened.
Okay, cool.
So it was a while ago, and they were like
beginning of the year.
Yeah, they were like, we have a new fun project coming from Ascension, which like could be anything, but like, I think anybody could have seen Catechism in a year coming, just because if you have any sort of business mind at all, you're like, it was the number one podcast in the world. You have to follow it up with something. The next thing that makes sense is the Catechism, right? But because I work in this world and have enough contacts and have conversations that don't go public, I heard about a lot of people, because the USCCB owns the Catechism, owns the print of the Catechism, the church, right? Mm-hmm. And other people, because of Bible in the Year, other smaller podcasters, not Ascension Press and Father Mike, were trying to start Catechism in the Year to try to ride off the coattails of their success. Like, awesome. That's
Makes
great.
Sense.
Congratulations.
Sure.
Right? But they kept getting cease and desist. People telling them to stop because they didn't own the it's just like anything else. They didn't own the copyright to the Catechism. And it kind of makes a lot of people were upset, but it makes sense. It's like, it's the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You don't want just anybody representing it, like officially, right?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
So people were upset, and I get why they were upset, but I also get why the church would want, like, I went to a college where they were saying they were teaching Catholic teaching, and it definitely wasn't. It's like, you don't want somebody representing. I get it, right? It's the same reason why if somebody else started a podcast called Forte Catholic and it was hosted by Liv Harrison, and she was spewing Liv Harrison sayings, I would shut it down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
nobody wants that.
So I had heard about a lot of this, and then I was like, oh, it's going to take somebody special to do this. So I heard nothing about the Catechism of the Year for a long time because they all got shut down. And then I was like, they were like, hey, we're doing a big project, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know what it is. So
really,
so they asked me to like submit my info, and I submitted my info. Like, what have you edited for? All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I got it because I was like, oh, I edited Talk to Me with Liv Harrison. They were like, oh, we got to have him. Like, we got to have this guy.
It's all Father Mike listens to.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we've known this forever.
Yeah. So I submitted that, and then I didn't hear anything for a long time, like for months. I was like, okay, whatever. And then about a month and a half ago, they reached out and they were like, hey, we have a project. Do you want to sign an NDA? And I'm like, now I know what it's for. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I signed it. We had a meeting, and they were like, they got to know me a little bit. I got to share a little bit about what I had done. They were like, hey, we're going to send you a test edit.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't do for people. I'm like, hey,
No.
I should get paid for my work. But if I'm getting into this project, I will do a test edit for sure. So I did it. And then they got back to me. Well, and then, like, you know, they actually announced it before, you know, I got the word, which I don't think was the original plan, but that's a whole nother thing. I think somebody leaked it. I think somebody didn't follow their NDA.
Follow their NDA? Yeah. Was it me? I was just kidding.
Yeah, no, I did. I didn't even tell my wife. My wife was frustrated. Sorry. My wife didn't know that I had a secret because that sort of thing. But my parents knew I had a secret, but I couldn't tell them, you know? And I finally told everybody and they were all excited. So what's so funny to me is that's like the story of how I got it. And it's all really exciting. But what's so funny for me is like, I've kind of known that this was it. And just because I'm confident in my skills, like I was pretty sure I was going to get it. Right.
Yeah.
So I've known about this for anywhere from half a year to at least a few months, to where it got more and more, where I kind of guessed what it was, and then I knew what it was, and then I really knew what it was, right? So I've been excited about this for a long time, but I literally couldn't tell anyone. So then I finally told people Friday, and now I'm like all excited again because now I get to share in my joy with people.
You did it, Taylor. You're famous. All right, here's the question though. When does the work begin? Like, have you already started?
So that test run that I did will be an official one. So technically I've already started, but Father Mike will start recording in August and we'll start putting them out in January. So we're going to be like months ahead, which is exciting.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So it doesn't all come out at once. It's like you can do it
daily podcast 365, which is why there are 4 editors, because it would be way too much work for one person to do. And daily podcast every day, right? So essentially all 4 editors are doing about 2 a day. All right, I'm sorry.
You'll be editing 2 a day?
I'm sorry, 2 a week.
2 a week?
Yeah, because there's 7 days in a week.
Starting in August.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be about 4 months ahead. So we'll be done with like January, February, March, April by the time it launches, and then
that's cool.
From there. So
okay, that makes sense. And then, of course, the big question is: are you connected with Father Mike? That's what everybody wants to know. Like, are you guys like hanging out? And
we're not. We've hung out before. I
know.
We hung out before.
But with this project.
But not with this project. No.
Right.
I tagged in a bunch of stuff, and I think he blocked me because a bunch of people were commenting on it. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, you're like,
why am I getting all these notifications?
Yeah, exactly. He's the face of the project. You're just the sound guy.
Yeah.
So, no, that's really cool.
Clearly, they chose the right face.
Seriously.
They're like, hey, Taylor, you can be a part of this popular podcast if you don't podcast or show your face. Don't say anything.
Behind the mic.
Don't be seen. Don't be heard. Just help this other guy.
Father Mike is pretty, and he knows that. I'm sure someone has told him that before. We're not the first.
He's so
this is not the
exclusive.
So
humble, though. He is. He's so humble. He's so cool. I've shared that story before. He's just such a, like, sometimes you meet your heroes and it's disappointing, and sometimes you meet him and you're like, he's even cooler in person. And that was
You're
Father
like,
Mike.
dang it.
Yeah.
Good. That's awesome. Well, congratulations. We're excited to hear about it.
Yeah, thanks.
And let us know whatever your next big project. Do you have any other NDAs that you've signed? Any other secrets, Taylor, that you can't expose yet?
I do have secrets, but you don't want me to share them. They're
Not about
yours.
me.
So I'm going to cede the floor to you. What do you got going on in your life? I mean, I just shared that everything's great for me.
Amazing. Yeah. Taylor has amazing stories. I have nothing like that. I get to go to Kansas tomorrow and take care of 4 little kids, which is called Tuesday for you.
Are you taking plane or clicking your heels together?
I am. I'm going to take a plane. So here's the thing. You're not going to believe this. Although I don't know if I've shared this. Does everybody know I have COVID, that I got COVID again?
No, you did not.
I'm on my 2nd round. And here's what stinks is, like, I can't get rid of it. So I'm still sick. I got COVID at the beginning of June. Where are we? We're in like July. I've had it for a few weeks and I still have it, but I got to go on with my life, Taylor.
Have you tried telling it to go away in the name of Jesus?
I should. Yeah, I actually believe in the virus. Everybody who doesn't believe in the virus is like, that's because I believe in the Lord. And I'm like, I believe in the Lord and the virus. But here's what's sad, Taylor. My husband is a financial advisor. I know you're not sad for him for that because he does very well. But we didn't know he was going to do well, but he does. And it's all him. I do nothing. I spend his money. So he won a trip through his company to Aruba, meaning they were flying 200 people privately. Well, I mean, on like a actual United
200 planes.
show that clip I sent you of that lady of the pores.
Yeah.
No,
Our Lady
we
of
would
the
be
Poor
flying-
sounds like a Marian title. It's not what you meant at all.
It's not at all. I would be the saint of the pores. Anyway, so
Yeah, you're a real Saint Teresa of Calcutta.
we were gonna go to the St. Regis, right? Is that the fancy schmancy?
I didn't know.
The Ritz Carlton.
I didn't know
the
he'd
Ritz
been
Carlton
sainted already. I knew Who Wants to Be a Millionaire did well. I just didn't realize he
Yeah.
was sainted.
Nice, exactly. No, not the St. Regis. The whatever. The Ritz Carlton. Ritz Carlton in Aruba. They're flying in all these people. They fly in famous people. It's like this whole big deal. I test positive for COVID the day before.
You know,
So-
you know how you get it. You know how I've avoided stuff like this. Your
how?
trip got canceled. You know how I've avoided this.
Yeah.
I don't take COVID tests.
I was sick. Taylor, I'm still
You know
sick.
what they say about COVID? What you don't know can't kill you until it does.
Well, Aruba, exactly. You'll be on a ventilator like, I'm not taking a test. I don't believe in the virus. Taylor, no.
I
you had
believe in it. I just want to move on with my life like we've done with all other sicknesses in our life.
the country of Aruba won't let you in. Everybody had to test anyway.
Wait, Aruba's a country?
Whatever it is. I don't know. Isn't it? Isn't it a country?
I don't think so.
Well, whatever it is.
You keep talking. I'm going to look
Aruba-
up what Aruba is.
What is Aruba? Anyway, so it was a couple of days before and I tested positive, but I was sick. But we had to submit a test anyway.
Oh my gosh, Aruba's a country.
See?
I thought
Long
it was
story
like
short,
Mexico. Like a
no,
place in
it's
Mexico.
off of. I would have gone to South America, but everybody keeps saying, "Well, you and Nathan should just go," and I'm like, they're like, "You could do the trip anyway." I was like, "No, we can't. This was a very special trip. Like it was free. We were going for free, and we were going to stay at the, what is it called, the Ritz Carlton for free, and it's the first time the man ever won a trip. I'm the worst wife ever. Not like Taylor needed to hear this story from me to admit for being the worst wife ever.
Yeah. It's obvious.
I'm the worst. So anyway, I missed Aruba, but I get to go to Kansas. So our lives
What are you
parallel.
saying? The Ritz Carlton and going to the beach in Kansas as well?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they have a Ritz Carlton in Kansas. Yeah, no, I'm going to help my friend who has 4 kids. She just had her 4th. Her husband's in the military and they just moved to Kansas. She gave birth like a week ago. So that seems the same. So I'm going to go with the sickness. I'm not allergic, or what am I?
Come on, get on, make it on my down with the sickness.
What is that called? You can't get, I'm not contagious. I just don't feel good. So your life is amazing. Look, we switched. I am now Taylor Schroll and you're now Liv Harrison.
Oh,
you're living your
God.
best life.
Well, I was doing well until now. So you just said that and ruined everything.
Exactly. Taylor knows nobody wants my life. Ritz Carlton or not.
I love that you traded Aruba for Kansas. I love that
Isn't
for
that
you.
sad? You're the worst.
I'm so happy. It makes me so happy.
Because I don't have enough horrible things in my life, Taylor. You're like, you could do one more. You could have one more.
You go to an island that may or may not be a country like 4 times a year. Get over yourself. I couldn't go once when it was free. You go free every time. He pays.
I believe in the sacrament of marriage and being one. See, I'm being very kind. I do not. I was just in Destin this week and it rained the entire time and I was sick.
No one feels bad for you when you're in Destin. Oh, I couldn't go to Aruba, so I went to Destin instead. And oh, it rained. God hates me. I went to go where the poors live.
Exactly. We went on vacation with Poors Go. There's a great Instagram that I'm following.
I can't believe I
It's
learned
so
that
good.
Aruba is a country. I found it. It's right above South America. It's like
It is.
Cuba and then nothing and then
Yeah.
this place. I don't. And
know.
here's my final
missed
take.
it.
Here's my final take that I'll make about Aruba. I don't think you should be allowed to be a country if you're the size of Rhode Island. It's very tiny.
Although, how many countries are the size of Rhode Island? That would be an interesting trivia question.
Yeah, y'all figure it out during the break because I'm not talking about this. Speaking of a break, not Allison, you're Liv. I'm tired. Lady co-host.
You thought I looked like Allison? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. lady co-host, insert female co-host name here, will not be joining us for the next segment. We're going to throw to an interview that I did with a returning guest, his third time back. It's just been years. Everett Fritz is back. We're going to talk about small group discipleship and see if we can get any, what are those called? Hot takes out of him. Don't go anywhere. Liv will be back for our final segment. Did you know that with every purchase on Amazon, you could be supporting Forte Catholic, and it doesn't cost you an extra dime? It's Amazon's program called Amazon Smile. It's their arm where they are very generous. What's that arm called? Their donating arm. I can't remember the correct term. Their giving arm, whatever that is called. But if you sign up, you can do it in the link in the bio, the description, wherever you're watching or listening to this. Just scroll down, you'll see Amazon Smile. You can click that. You can set Forte Catholic up as the nonprofit that you would like to support, and everything that you buy on Amazon from here on out will support Forte Catholic. So if you want to help out the show, help us to continue to grow, help us out financially, it's a way that you can do it just by spending money for yourself. It's the most selfless thing that you can do. Amazon Smile, all the way down in the description. Please, it would be great for us. Thanks. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll. Thank God we kicked Liv out for about 15, 20 minutes. Don't worry, she'll be back in a while. But we upgraded for at least the middle of the show. We're joining back a multiple-time guest, but it has been a while. Mr. Everett Fritz is back on the show. Everett, how are you, man?
Good. Good to see you survived the pandemic.
Yeah, we both did. Yeah.
Yeah, the last time I talked to you was pre-pandemic, and then so the whole world has changed since we last spoke.
And both of our lives have changed. We were talking about that before the show launched. Like, hey, the last time we talked, our lives were completely different, and here we are. But your episode remains. One of your episodes was at one point the most popular episode that we had ever had. And then obviously it had been, it's been a couple of years since you've been on. But because you were so popular, I brought you back, and then that episode became one of the most popular. And the show's grown a little bit, so it's gotten past now. But I'm hoping that this episode breaks all the records.
Taylor, if I'm your best interview, like your best episodes, you got to get higher profile guests, man.
I don't think you're my best interview. I just think that every now and then you've been known to say something controversial, and it's kind of clickbaity. And most of the stuff I do isn't clickbaity. It's just kind of like, hey, let's come out and hang out and laugh for a little while. And then you're like, and people like that.
I'll try to say something controversial so we could boost your subscribers.
Yeah. Everett Fritz gets canceled by going on Forte Catholic. But the reason that you are back, one, is because I just missed you and your glorious bald head. But two, you wrote another book, and it's actually interesting because there's some backstory with me with this book. Your new book is all about, your whole ministry has been about small groups, and the book is called One Disciple at a Time: How to Lead Others to Dynamic, Engaged, Life-Changing Faith. And, it kind of started as a small group thing. It's like, oh, I've been at like week-long trainings with Everett about how like ministry leaders run small groups. So you set out to write a book for ministry leaders, and then you got a little smart and you're like, hey, that's a smaller demographic of people. Let's reach more people. So why don't you tell the story about how the book started?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, small group ministry. So I work at primarily with consulting for youth ministry, developing small group discipleship, and even small groups needs definition, because there are people that will say, oh yeah, we run small groups that like we do a 15-minute breakout during our youth group. And it's like, no, those aren't the kinds of small groups I'm talking about. I'm talking about the whole youth ministry being the small group, or the whole ministry being the small group itself, and discipleship. And discipleship by definition is the program is following the example of the rabbi. So there's no such thing as a program that leads to discipleship. I just pet peeve of mine is that we use the word discipleship in small groups as for catch-all for everything. And so the biggest thing is like discipleship. If it's about following the example of the rabbi and learning from his very way of life, people would ask me when we would do small group ministries, it would happen over and over and over again. Okay, what program do you want us to use? Like, what do we do in our small groups? And I will say, well, discipleship isn't a program. I want them to follow your way of life. I want you to identify what their needs are and minister to those needs. And I would give advice there, but they would still come back to, well, what program do you want us to run? Like Catholics, we love our programs. And I realized, I was like, we have an entire generation of Catholics, and probably multiple generations, that don't know how to minister to people because they've never been ministered to themselves. But really, when I break it down, I was in a room full of about 200 ministry leaders giving a training, and the idea idea just came to me, and I said, let's do an exercise real quick, because I could see they were having a hard time letting go of a program mentality. I said, I want you to imagine your pastor comes to you tomorrow and he gives you an entirely different job description. He's like, everything you're doing in ministry is now somebody else's job. You don't need to worry about it at all. Your new job description is to make one lifelong follower of Jesus Christ. Just one, but like one, like John Paul II or Mother Teresa, like, because I mean, let's give a context.
You end up with a minor saint and you're like, you're a failure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, I'm like, one John Paul II has a greater impact on the world than 1,000 mediocre Catholics. So I mean, we really want to get more John Paul IIs into the world. So how do you make one of those? And so the exercise I took them through, I was like, I want you to imagine where you meet, what you talk about, what the invitation looks like. You've got as long as you need. You got 30 years to do this if you need that amount of time. But I want you to think through those steps, and then at the end of this exercise, I'm like, compare what those steps are to what you're doing in ministry now. And you'll see that what you're doing is entirely different than discipleship ministry. Like, you're not actually focused on making a disciple, making a living saint. You're running programs. I want you to focus on the steps that it actually takes to make a saint, and multiply from 1 to 3 and 3 to 12 and 12 to 72 and so on and so forth. As I was writing the book, as you mentioned, I was like, I'm writing this for ministry leaders. But then I realized, I was like, the call to go and make disciples was a calling of every Catholic. Yeah. And it's not up to our priests. It's not up to our priests and religious and nuns, et cetera, or the church employees to be the ones that put together an initiative. Like, every Catholic should be taking this commandment seriously. And so really the whole book, One Disciple at a Time, available on Amazon or Ave Maria Press. One disciple at a time is just, here's how I would answer that question. Here's how I would make one disciple. And within that, I coach the reader of like, here's the steps that it actually takes. It's actually really simple, but it requires an army to be able to do it, because we need people who are intentionally focused on the needs of an individual.
Yeah. So it's funny, because I was like, there's a bunch of shows for ministry leaders, and this isn't one of them. This is just a show for like the random guy. So when you talked about your people actually emailed me a couple months ago, and one, I was just really busy. I was like, I want to get Everett on, but I was like, we had talked about like the small group stuff a couple of years ago. And I was like, okay, if we're gonna do this, like, let's do it for just the random guy listening to the show, who, like, a lot. I've just because I've gotten to talk to a lot of people that listen to the show. It's like a lot of great Catholics, great people. But if they were asked to like lead a small group for people at their church or people in their community, or if they were asked to just like what you just said, to make one saint, like, what are the steps for that? And I would imagine a lot of people will be like, I would love to do it. People hear the Great Commission, like, yeah, I'm going to go do it. And then they're like, yeah, but how, So I'm glad you wrote this book. So let's get into some of those steps, right? Some of those practical things. Like when you say to walk with somebody to help make them a saint, like, what are some of those things along that process?
I think one of the first things, I noticed there was a need for this. So if you go on social media and you go onto like Catholic Twitter, which I know you're very involved with, is just responding to people back and forth on Twitter within the Catholic community. And people are just love to share their opinions and get angry and be jerks on social media. And
I do that in my real life too, to be fair. Yeah. So.
well, but like, then you look at like the typical Catholic ministry, and there's not, like, they're underserved, they're undermanned. And I'm like, why are all these people hanging out on their computers? Like, I've never heard a person say my heart was converted because of something somebody said to me on Twitter. Like, that's not the way you do evangelization or ministry. Just to give one example, if you want to, like, a context of like, how do you actually walk with a person? One of the most common things that I hear from adults, older adults, is, how do I bring my adult child back to the faith after they've walked away? Really common question, sadly. And they're hurt and they're in pain because their child has walked away from the faith as an adult and they're not practicing. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about what you do now. And what I normally will find is that they like constantly try to talk about the faith with their adult child. They're like, I tell them this and I tell them that. I'm like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Stop talking about the faith. Stop it. I was like, you may never be able to talk about the faith with your child ever again. I want you to focus on the relationship. Go out fishing, go to a movie, go hang out together, go have coffee, be engaged and interested in their life. I actually have and I write this in the book, I have oh my gosh, my mind is blanking, like a law a rule. Oh my gosh, I couldn't remember the word rule.
It has been decreed by Everett Fritz.
I have a rule that I will not talk about the faith with my extended family. And it's because they know I'm the church guy. They know I'm the churchy one. And so, but lo and behold, I have lots of conversations about the faith with my extended family because they bring it up to me,
right.
But I will not bring it up with them.
I'm real similar on that. Yeah.
There's a story that I lead with at the beginning of the book where I just want to talk about the need for patience with somebody and the willingness to see something through and walk with somebody. So there's a movie that I saw that had it's about magicians. Now You See Me, which was it's like a ridiculous movie, but it's actually really entertaining.
Yeah.
And they tell a story of a magician who had this idea for a card trick, and he had somebody like write their name on a card and made the card disappear, etc. But then he took that card and he stuck it into a knot in a tree, and over the course of 30 years, the tree grew around it. And then eventually the person who wrote their name on the card came back to the town, and without remembering they ever had written their name on a card, he had them pick out the same card using sleight of hand, write their name in the same exact place. And then he made the card disappear. And he's like, your card is now in the middle of that tree. And he cut down the tree. And lo and behold, the card was there. And it was like a legendary, everyone was like, how in the world did he do it? Well, he had a 30-year plan to see this thing through. That's what it takes to be an effective evangelist. It's not like one conversation that you have where you're like, I'm going to beat you over the head with my Bible passages and my apologetics and my catechism. But no, it's a willingness to say, I'm interested in your life, and I just want to listen and hear and walk with you through it. And those opportunities then to present the faith will present themselves.
What I learned from that story was that what you really need is a forgetful audience in order to do good ministry. Forget all the bad stuff that I've said on this show and only remember the good things. And come back in 30 years and I'll be like, hey, remember that time I mentioned you once on the podcast? Here it is. Mm-hmm. So, well, podcast probably won't exist in 30 years, but trees still will.
Let's hope there's still trees.
Yeah, well, otherwise we wouldn't because of breathing. One of the other things. So you mentioned earlier that you were talking about like when people want to lead small groups, right? Because we had the two things that you focus on. You're focusing on the one-on-one here, and then you've built your whole life out of the small group thing. And I'm interested because we're just now starting these. I've mentioned on the show before. We're starting these quads. I'm sure you've heard of them. The pretty small group kind of thing, right? And like in quads, there's some guidance and those sorts of things, so you could say it's a program, whatever, right? But one of the things that that we're trying to do is like get people who have never really led small groups to lead small groups and doing more of the just like, look, you don't have to know everything, you don't have to plan everything, it's just the walking with people, right? So when you're talking about small groups and helping just the normal person, not your person who's worked at the church for 10 years or whatever, just your normal everyday Catholic. And then, you said earlier, like, oh, I'm not going to tell you what to say, but what types of things are in good small groups that anybody listening can go find 3 friends and meet after, church on Sundays or whatever, right? What are some good things that happen in those small groups?
The number one thing that you could do that has a huge impact on the quality of a conversation and also the quality of ministry in general is share your witness. I heard somebody say one time, they said the church is the primary way the church has always shared the faith is through beauty. And I'm like, that is dead wrong. I was like, for the first 500 years, we didn't share the faith through beauty. We shared the faith by being burned to death.
Yeah.
Like by witness, the fact that, no, and it literally like the fact that Christians were willing to joyfully go to their death and be martyred for the faith gave witness to there's something behind this. The fact, what did the apostles do when they first went out into the world? They told the story of Jesus Christ and how they witnessed a man die and rise from the dead. So giving testimony to here's my relationship with Jesus Christ. Here's how he's moved in my life powerfully. Here's what he's doing in my life today. And having those conversations regularly, like I can't tell you, I took a step back one time and I realized like how much there's only 5 homilies in my life I can remember that have had a huge impact on me. And each time it was because the priest gave witness to what God was doing in his life. And it could be something biblical, like he was like, I read the story of Jesus and the lepers, and here's how this pertained to my life at the time when I read it. And it's like, yeah, that's beautiful. It gives witness, it gives testimony to the way God works. We aren't comfortable in that, and we need to be. The opposite of sharing witness is hypocrisy. So like those who say like, do this, but don't follow my example because my example doesn't. And so you look at like what does more damage to the church than anything else. I would say hypocrisy. Look at the church sexual abuse scandals. Look at bishops who don't stand up for the truth. Look at like those types of hypocrite moments, which is largely what the Pharisees were, and that's who Jesus condemned. Those hypocrite moments do untold damage to people. Like the way you live your life and giving testimony to the way God has moved in your life is the most powerful thing you can do. Speaking the truth and not living it, the most damaging thing you can do.
Yeah, man. Okay, final question on the one-on-one stuff, right? Because you've given us like kind of first steps, right? Like you shared your decree of Everett Fritz to not share the faith with your family and all this stuff, like, but to let people come to you, share your story, that sort of thing, right? But I'm thinking about and like, okay, you want to somebody listen to this is like inspired. They're like, oh, I heard Everett and I want to go walk with somebody, right? And then they meet with them one time and they listen to their story, they share their story, and now they're like, okay, what do I do for the next 30 years? So like we can't go through the whole 30 years, but like what are some of the other important aspects of walking with somebody one-on-one in faith?
Well, I think one of the first things I focus in on is just the invitation, because the personal one of the beautiful things about doing ministry one-on-one is that you can personally invite. And a personal invitation goes a long, long way. And then the fact that, so let's say you get together, you listen to somebody's story, you say, hey, where are you at in your own faith life? And they tell you their story. You may tell parts of yours. Then the follow-up is, hey, let's get together for coffee next week and let's make this a regular thing. People are hungry for relationship. I mean, if anything, the pandemic showed us that. I like to say, look, and this is very true in youth ministry. If you've been doing youth ministry past like around 2012, youth culture changed, and it changed because of the phone. Once young people were connected constantly in social media, they no longer felt like they needed a large community of people because they were constantly connected to a large community of people. What every person is hungering for these days is intimacy with another person, and intimacy with God himself. And so how do you navigate helping somebody find intimacy with God himself? You have to be willing to have an intimate relationship with them too. And so the idea of, it's a foreign concept to Catholics to say, hey, let's get together weekly, and we're going to press play on this video series and watch, famous Catholic speaker go through no, get together weekly and talk about your lives. Mm-hmm. Like start there and just start to dive in and just like, tell me about your life this week. How can I pray for you? And you'll be amazed at where things go. And then eventually, if you find somebody has a lot of questions about the Bible or a lot of questions about apologetics or different things, that's when you study together. But it's a matter of saying, okay, I want to actually get to know you as a person first. So regular meetings with a person, just say, hey, let's go out to coffee. And then if it's a fruitful conversation, we should do this again. What do you think about getting together weekly or every other week or monthly or something of that nature? That will do more to bring somebody to the faith than almost anything else you can do.
Well, there you go. So at first he gave you what you do on the first meeting, and then he gave you the second meeting, and then he did the next few. But if you want the next 30 years, you're going to have to go buy the book. That's what we call a paywall. One Disciple at a Time by Everett Fritz. How to Lead Others to Dynamic, Engaged, Life-Changing Faith. Ave Maria Press, Amazon, wherever you get great books. And then you've got, if you want more information on how to walk with people, you can do so at his website and his new podcast. Let us know about those.
Yeah, so my ministry is called Andrew Ministries. I coach and consult for small group discipleship-based ministry, particularly youth ministry. So that's andrew-ministries.com. Go to the website. We have free resources available on the website. Also, I have a new podcast called Holy Conundrums Podcast, where we talk about church problems and sensible solutions. So I think that's all my merch to sell.
Well, I'm proud of you, because you used to just share the church problems, and that was the hot topic things, but never the solutions. So even Everett Fritz can grow as a person.
The problems are so much more fun to talk about. And honestly, if you understand the problem, though, there's all kinds of solutions you can come up with, but you got to be able to nitpick on the problem and really nail it down. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't say anything too controversial. on this one. So.
We'll get a little bit of hate mail. It's fine though. I'm used to it.
Right.
I'm here every week, so we're used to hate mail. Well, Everett, it's good to talk to you again. And everybody else that's listening, go find the book and then stick around for the next 20 minutes. We're stuck with Liv. Don't go anywhere. Hey there, you watching, listening to this episode. Are you enjoying it? If you are, I bet that while you were listening to this, at least one person popped into your head, whether it was completely randomly or because of something that we were talking about. That might be your cue to hit the share button and share it with them. Text it to them, man. Like, yeah, sharing it on social media would be great and all, but like, how many people really click those links? You know what I mean? Like, I see the numbers when I share stuff. Nobody clicks on anything. Maybe one. But if you share this with somebody, be like, hey, this is something I think you might enjoy. Dude, we can double our listeners in a week if you all do it and stop being little schmucks. Yes, I called my listeners schmucks. I love you. Enjoy the rest of the show. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll. Liv Harrison is back. How'd you like that interview with Everett, Liv?
It was incredible. And if I were Allison, I would look beautiful and say it was incredible. Both hands.
Oh, man, you think you're so funny. It's funny how funny you think you are.
Why do I laugh at you? Like, everything you say is an insult, and I die laughing. And it's like,
I think your
sad.
face is weird. See, it works.
God, I should just play this for my
Your teeth
therapist.
remind me of bunny teeth.
Aw, I'm a little, yeah.
Oh, I found one. Oh, you left still. I win.
No, I was just still living off of the excitement that you thought I was Allison for 2 seconds. So I was just
Yeah, for us, that was a minute
close.
ago. For,
Not even
for the
close.
listeners, it was 25 minutes ago. They're like,
It
when did that
was. It
happen?
was.
Yeah.
It hasn't. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. This is your favorite when I bring up things that nobody knows.
Yes. Okay, so I wanted to share a story with you, and I have a few questions as I show the story, but this is my favorite segment with you because I get to talk for most of it. You ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. My first question, I will give you permission to speak. You can speak when spoken to, Miss Harrison. When's the last time that you went to confession? Do you mind sharing that answer?
Ooh. Probably in the spring. It was during Easter.
Okay, cool.
Easter time. Yeah.
So good. What was that 3 months, something like that?
Yeah.
So it had been a while for me. It had been maybe 4, 5, 6 months, right? It was just one of those things. I just kept putting it off. Like, oh, I'll go in a few weeks. And then I think what happened was I usually go every 2 or 3 months, but I got sick around that 3 months time, and then it took me like a month and a half to recover. And then I'm like, oh, I need to go, right? And I'm too tired to sin whenever I'm sick.
I know.
So,
Maybe that's why we keep getting sick.
Yeah. God's like,
Jesus
hey, this is we're seeing the results. Less sin whenever they're in bed by themselves for 6 weeks. Let's keep doing that.
We could just get a bus to hit them and kill them while that happens. Then they could go right on up. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So I'm just thinking about the logistics of how hard it would be for a bus to hit my room. Like, I live in a cul-de-sac, so why would a bus be here? How would it get up to that fast? And also, it's the back room in my house.
This is what we're doing?
Yeah. I'm
Go
saying
back to confession.
Yeah. I think your analogy's stupid.
Tell us something new.
Okay. So, I was in confession. The reason I was in confession, and people might be getting tired of hearing about this now, but long story short, for people who haven't heard me talk about it pretty much every week for the last 6, I started a new ministry at our church called Foundations. It's like Catholicism 101. Boom, that's all you need to know. But we did a night on the sacraments. It's essentially like RCIA for people who are already Catholic, right? Just kind of it's like a booster shot for Catholicism.
Nice.
I was going to make a lot of booster shot jokes, but I'm going to refrain. So we did a night on the sacraments, and we tried to pack the sacraments in, like the lessons are like 35 minutes long. So we tried to do all the sacraments in here, but we knew that most people had, they've been Catholic for a long time. They know about sacraments, but going into it, I was like, reconciliation needs to be the primary thing here. And I kind of like knew that mentally coming in. I was like, I feel like mentally, I think there's a lot of people that probably haven't been in a while. And then I wasn't given the talk that night. One of my friends was, and I just sat there and just had this. And it's not this like, I don't have this stuff happen often, but I just had this overwhelming sense that was like, it wasn't mental. It was like a spiritual thing of like, there are people in here that really need to go to confession. Like, it's been a long time, you know, I don't know who it is, but I just had this feeling. So I shared that and kind of got goosebumps as I shared it, you know? And I was like, and essentially what I said was like, we're like, cause everybody's enjoying foundations. We're halfway done. We're 5-6 weeks in. Everybody's really enjoying it. And I'm like, look guys, like, I know like we're learning a lot. We're having a great time with this small Catholic community, but like nothing that we say for the whole 10 weeks will be more important than you going to confession once. Like that's going to do more for your spiritual life than literally everything else that we do in this 10 weeks combined. And I shared that and a bunch of people went. But here I am. We had a week break for 4th of July, and we have confession 3 times a week at our parish, and so there, you know, the first week goes by, Father Anthony's here, so I'm you know, and we're gone, so I'm not at the parish for that one, and then we get through Wednesday I didn't go, Thursday I didn't go, we get to the last day, and it's Saturday, and then we meet the next Monday. Like, this is my last chance to go. I was like, I gave the homework, I gotta go. You know, it's been a while for me, longer than it usually is, so I went. And it was really cool to see about 6 people there from our group, which our group's only 18. So like a lot of people, 1, it was cool to see people there. 2, it was very funny to see them all at the last chance too, right? Like, you know,
you're like, these are my people.
Right. So I get there and not just because our group, but this, like, you know, I've shared before too, that our parish is in a lot healthier place than it's been the last, ever since I've been here. It's the longest when I got there 15 minutes early and the line was already longer than I had ever seen it ever. But 15 minutes before it started. We get in line. We're there for about an hour. By the time I leave, the confessional line is the length of our church. We have a pretty large church. It has like 2,000, 2,500 families. Like, it's a big church. And the line was from the back of the church to the front of the church. Like, just incredible, right? But here's my first question for you. It was a really cool experience. We'll get more to why it was cool and how it was cool, and also why it was absolutely terrible. There's a little piece in there that made it terrible. But I knew we were going to be in line for a long time. So here is my question. My question for you and my question for the audience to ponder. What are the rules for what you are allowed to do in line for confession? What do you think that we should be doing when we're in line for confession?
I feel like you and I have talked about this, and I don't know if it was on, like, in an episode or if it was in real life, because we've gone to confession together.
I don't think so. Okay. Keep going.
And I have pulled out my phone. You were sitting next to me in the confession line. We're waiting. We were at St. Mary's. And I started, like, it was not like an app of like flagging my sins. It wasn't Instagram either. I'm trying to remember what it was that I did. And I remember that we talked about it later and you were like, okay, I totally thought you were on Facebook or Instagram. And I wasn't, but I wasn't doing something like purely like, what was I doing? Oh, I know what it was. I pulled out notes and I started taking notes myself. Like, I started writing things myself. But I did feel weird, and then you made me feel weird.
Pick up 2% milk. Call back bank.
Yeah, because I've got plenty of apps where you can flag different sins. You know what I mean? Like, not just Hallow or Halo or whatever the heck that is. But like, I have like a confession one. But I was kind of going through some, like, trying to read stuff. I feel like that's okay, but like, I know this is not what you asked, but like, my husband takes out his phone. I
really need you to answer what I asked because we got to get through this segment.
Okay.
Say it again. That scenario also.
I think you're allowed to be on your phone. I think you're allowed to be on your phone.
I think so too.
I do.
But I do remember the time that we were in. The time that we were in St. Mary's, because that one I think was different, even from what I'm about to say. I was in a church, which obviously the church has a tabernacle, but the tabernacle's closed, right? I think that makes a difference, at least for me. But where you and I were, it was an adoration chapel where we are going into confession. So like, adoration was happening at the same time. So like, at that point, it's like, you don't want to be on Instagram or Facebook. Like, notes is fine. Like, I take notes during Mass, during the homily and stuff. Like, I mean, I share about Mass all the time on this show. Well, how do you think I remember? I pulled out my phone and I took a note, you know? But like, we were in an adoration chapel. So like, you and I weren't sitting there talking to each other. Now, I think it's different. So I was in a church and what I think you should do before adoration, whether it's before you go, I think you should do it before you go, because if you want to get in line, you might be first. You never know. So I like to go to confession ready for confession. I've done my examination of conscience. I know what I'm going to say. It's not that hard for me. I've been saying the same exact thing for many, many years. It's not that difficult to do an examination of conscience. But I come ready to go. So that way, like, literally, I'm just standing in line, right? And you want to come in and, like, pray, acknowledge that Jesus is there, that sort of thing, right? But if I'm standing there for an hour, I don't think, like, I'm standing next to one of my best friends. We started talking, right? And I know that some people, we're not talking like this, but we're kind of whispering, talking to each other, whatever.
Yeah.
We're talking about like TV shows that we just watched or whatever. We're just hanging out. Yeah, Jesus is there, but, like, people hung out with Jesus when he was alive. What's the difference now? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they were like, we can't talk, Jesus is here. Like.
It was a silent wedding at Cana.
Yeah, exactly.
No one spoke.
Everybody shut up and drink your free wine.
Exactly.
So, like, it was this interesting thing, because I know that some people would be against that, but I didn't see a problem with it, right? I'm already prepared. I know other people are trying to prepare, so I'm not going to talk like this, but, like, we were whispering. Maybe we were bothering the person right in front of her and right behind me. Maybe, right? What do you think about talking whilst in line for confession?
Yeah, probably not okay. I got to be honest. Yeah.
That's fine. You can be wrong. Tell me why.
Yeah. No, because you did but, like, if you don't know what's going on in other people's lives, you don't know why they had to all of a sudden get to the confession line. You know what I mean? So if they really need to prepare, I believe that they need the quiet and the respect for that.
But
that's
what
all.
I'm saying is that doesn't take an hour. Like, essentially, we were quiet for maybe the first 5-10 minutes of the hour, and then we talked.
So you're saying the people on either side should have been prepared by then. By the time you started
talking. And then we talked for about 20 minutes, and then we shut up for about 10 to pray again. And then we talked for a few more minutes, and then we were quiet again for like 5 more minutes when we got to the front. It's just one of those things where it's like,
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
I think there's some kind of balance between being respectful of other people, being respectful of, like, being in a church, but also, like, being realistic of, like, I don't have to sit here in silence, and, like, I didn't come here for an adoration hour. Like, an adoration hour is great, but that's not why I came here. I came here for confession, not knowing it was going to take an hour. And for me, it was an hour, and I got there 15 minutes early. For the people behind me, it was probably 2 hours, right? So it's like, I don't think you need to, like, the penance is supposed to be after, not before.
So did someone yell at you? Did you get in trouble?
But here's the thing. Here's where it gets into. I promise you, this story, and I probably will just rush through the whole story, and then we'll talk about it after.
Okay.
Because I want to give you the full context of the story. I swear to you that every single piece of this is real, because it sounds like it's out of a Catholic movie. Like, what happened to me during this confession sounds like it was out of a movie. So here's this. I've already set the scene a little bit. I'm 15 minutes early. There's a ton of people there. I walk in, and, like, one of my we knew, we kind of coordinated, because she's the other person helping me with foundations. We were like, hey, we need to go because we need to set the example, and we just need to go, right? So we walk in together. We hadn't seen each other in a while, so we were quiet for a bit, and then we started talking. I already talked about that part, right? Immediately, the person that comes in right behind me, I've thought about how I'm going to say this in the show. I'm not a fan of, and they're not a fan of me. And this is the person that stood behind me for an hour. Devout Catholic, but we 7 years ago, like, we almost got in a physical altercation. We would have if I'm not as large as I am, because he tried to start a physical altercation, and I stood up and looked at him, and he left. He has also gotten in a physical altercation with a friend of mine who is a saint, and, like, it was this person's fault, and called the cops on my friend, and my friend was in handcuffs and was about to get taken to jail because he essentially said that he beat him up when it was he started it.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Like, so not like, and then
yeah.
So those are the two big things, but there's some other things that just make me not a fan of this person, and I think because of who I am, like, talking in line makes them not a fan of me. So it's not a one-way street, right? So I have not interacted with this person in years, because it was just one of those, like, it's just not for me. Like, I'm going to distance myself. That way, like, the anger is gone. And, like, the anger is gone. Like, I used to be angry at this person, but it's been years since I've interacted with them. So why be angry about it, right? That didn't mean it wasn't awkward standing next to this person for an hour, right? But this person's also pretty judgmental about, like, sacredness of stuff. So, like, I wasn't talking to make them mad, but I knew I was doing it knowing that it would. You know what I mean?
You didn't stop because you knew.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm good with it. I'm okay.
And I want to reiterate.
With my choices.
I didn't talk because he was behind me.
Right.
But I knew that it was probably going to bother this person.
It didn't make you stop.
So
right.
then that's this one piece. And then the next part of this confession is, as I'm standing in line, ironically enough, I pull out my phone, I start taking notes, right? I was like, what can and can't you do in the line? And here we are talking about it. The next thing is, this is the first time that I have gone to confession with my pastor, who, like, he does. That's been always my rule. I'm not going to go to the guy that signs my checks. He doesn't sign my checks, but he did just hire my wife. My wife works at the church now. I think I've mentioned that on the show. Hooray! My wife has a job.
Yay,
just in case I haven't
Sam.
mentioned it before. We're very happy. So signs a check that comes to my bank account. And, like, I'm on the pastoral council and I'm running, like, I just don't like going to confession with people that I work with and see day in and day out. I'd rather go to the associate or another parish or whatever when I travel, that sort of thing. So I had this thought of, since I say the same sins over and over and over again, I just want to learn them in another language, memorize that, and just go into confessional. Yo soy el murdero, like, just like whatever my sins are in Spanish or something. I want to memorize it and go in and see how they would respond. Okay. But so that was just a random thought. But here's where it gets crazy. Here's where it felt like a Catholic movie, because in the Catholic movie, there's, like, the protagonist, obviously me, talking to his friend, standing in front. There's the antagonist behind, right? I go into the confessional. And while, like I said, the last 5 minutes or so, they were about to get ready for Mass. So the pianist came in and started playing music. And that did make it a little bit more prayerful, kind of easier for me to focus. So we shut up. We stopped talking, right? So the piano is playing and kind of practicing for Mass. I go into the confessional. I say all my sins. The pastor asks a bunch of follow-up questions, which I didn't like. I didn't want to give any more information. I was like, I gave you the information I wanted to give you. But I did, because I'm trying to be a good Catholic, I swear to you, Liv, I swear to you, what about to happen happened at exactly the moment that I say that does. It sounds like I'm making it up. Do you know what my favorite instrument is?
In the world? No.
My favorite instrument, especially for, like, prayer and liturgy. I've said it a couple times, but maybe you hadn't heard. I think that the violin is the prettiest instrument in the world, and it adds so much to prayer and worship, right? Yeah. So I mentioned that the pianist got there about 10 minutes in. I say all of my sins. I got goosebumps right now. It's one of the craziest moments that's ever happened to me. Priest asks all his follow-up questions. I kind of explain myself, and then he says, okay, and then I do my act of contrition. When I finish the act of contrition and Father puts his hand up and he starts giving the absolution, the moment he starts giving absolution, the violinist for Mass had just shown up, starts playing this beautiful music. So now the prayer of absolution is scored to this beautiful violin music. And I got goosebumps. I almost teared up, because I'm like, this is God's nudge to me of, like, well done, my good and faithful servant. Maybe you shouldn't have talked while you were in line, but you got yourself here. You got all these other people here. Like, very good job. I haven't heard a violin in that church in a year. And it happened the moment that he started. Like, it was insane. It was insane.
Can I say what is so great about this story? You seem more excited about this than the Father Mike Schmitz Catechism in the Year.
It was incredible. There was a violin. I'm going to start adding violins under Father Mike. That's what I'm going to do.
That's brilliant. Taylor, that's amazing. Well, wait, I want to know what the antagonist did. I want to know if he punched you when you walked out. I got to hear the conclusion.
Here's the conclusion of the story. Violin happens. I get I don't hear any of the words of the absolution, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, is this really, like, I had to walk out, like, legitimately, I had to walk out, and, like, when my friend got out of confessional and actually finished her penance, I walked up to her. I was like, you hear the violin, right? Like I'm not crazy.
I'm not Harry Potter,
Because like
right?
we don't have
can all hear
violins at
this?
our church. Yeah, I thought it was like like Harry Potter seeing the horses because he saw somebody die. Like I thought the violin was just a gift from God. Like I wasn't sure. Right?
We're still alive, right? We're still we're still on the planet.
Yeah. It's not the violins from the Titanic that are playing while they're all dying. That's what it was.
Did something? Yeah, for sure.
Here's how the story ends.
Oh gosh.
I do my penance, which was a lot, by the way. She does her penance, so I'm trying to, I finish and I kind of wait for her to leave, but she's still doing her penance. So I go sit like out in the foyer. So there's like the main church, the foyer, and then the vestibule, whatever you know what I mean when I say the foyer.
Yeah.
Right? All the people are so and so. I don't care. So it's between the church and my car, right? So I'm sitting out there. I have not looked at this person for an hour.
Oh,
I like turned my back on it just because like I just didn't want it to be awkward, right? Like I haven't interacted with them at all. And then I'm sitting there waiting for my friend and the door opens and I think it's my friend. So I look at him and guess who it is?
The guy,
right? Who had just come out of confessional. And he's grinning ear to ear. He looks at me, he smiles and goes, "Hey, sup?" And just smiles and walks out. And I had two thoughts. One, am I an incredibly big jerk that can't get over stuff from years ago? And or is the only time that I can interact with this person is when we are both in a perfect state of grace?
Is there a third option, which is both?
Yeah.
All the above?
Because like I was sitting there because like it's just one of those people where it's like I just don't want to be like.
Did you say hi back?
I did.
Good.
But I was sitting in the car on the way back, and I was like, maybe I should forget, and move on with my life, or we were both in a state of grace. That's the only time we should interact. When both of us have completely clean consciences, then we're okay. But any other moment past that probably wouldn't be healthy, and that's where I landed.
Good. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. You'll just text him whenever you're going to go to confession, and then that's when you guys can see each other.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. So the violins, please tell me that it was a wedding that was happening. I thought you were going to say something like that. I thought you were going to say, and then a bride came in and there was like some reason for the violin, but I kind of love that you said that there was I don't know if you know this, but my favorite music in the world are like movie soundtracks.
Mariachis.
I don't know if you know that.
Oh, okay.
Absolute favorite. So like, I love that you said that there was like a soundtrack to your
I legitimately felt like I was in a cheesy Christian movie. I did.
You're like, Hans Zimmer is outside.
Right.
Like, John Williams is Catholic. Yeah, that would have been amazing. But that's kind of not a bad idea, Taylor. I mean, I already said you're an audio engineer or whatever I said you were, sound engineer. What if you you contact Hallow and tell them that you could write like scripted music for different sacraments for like confession, absolution, and you put on
the best one would be baptism.
On the app.
The best one would be baptism. Baptism, because it would be all like hellish music and then heaven. Bum, 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 beforehand.
Right.
And then the Force
I love
theme. It's Vader's theme before baptism and then the Force theme after baptism.
That's hilarious. See, you just did something new. This segment brought to you by Hallow.
That'd be great. We've talked for way too long, but I have one final thought about this confession thing because I don't want to leave
Let's hear it.
So
let's hear it.
My penance was interesting because I'm convinced that my pastor knew it was me, but then when he gave me the penance, I'm not sure if he was, because average family, at least it used to be like 2.5 kids. I think it's less now, right? But average Catholic family in our church, like there's a good chance that I had 8 kids, 9 kids. Anybody in that line could have, right? I have 3, but the penance that he gave me was to say an Our Father for each member of my family and thank God for them, right? So like I have a wife and 3 kids, not a crazy, like 4 Our Fathers, that's not crazy, like more than normal, but not crazy. But like, could you imagine if he said that to the guy in our church that has 13 kids? He spent his whole afternoon in church. He waited
He's
in
still
line
there.
for an hour and a half, and now he's doing it after. Like, he's an hour and a half on each end. It cracked me up.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, I'm glad that you had violins, and I'm glad that you are a good person when you are shiny. Even Taylor can be a good person when he's in the state of grace. I thought that's what I'm taking away from this story.
What I'm taking away from this story is my biggest takeaway is the next podcast or the next time I go to confession, I'm going to bring all my podcaster equipment and record this in the foyer. It'll be the holiest show we've ever done because I'll be nice to everybody, including Olivia Newton-John. That's everything we have today. I'll be back next week. Liv will be back for episode 300. See ya! Thank you guys for watching and listening today. I hope that you enjoyed it. We had an absolute blast. If you did, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't done it yet, it's just mean at this point. Hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening or over on YouTube. Share it with somebody. Y'all are the best. We'll be back next week for a very special episode. We're going to have a surprise co-host. Don't go anywhere. Well, I mean, why'd I say that? Go wherever you want. The show is over. I'm tired. I love you. Bye.